All right. And it looks like we are live. Yay, Miss Heather has joined the room.
I'm here.
Except now I can't hear you through my earbuds. How fun.
I mean, what would a live show be without some technical difficulty?
You know, tech issues. It's like literally I was just connected.
Oh, I'm getting feedback.
All right, I'll take the earbuds out.
Yep.
And they can go bye-bye.
Yep.
All right, folks. Well, hello, this is Jamie.
And this is Heather.
And welcome to Using Our Inside Voice, a podcast where
What do we call our show again?
it's been a day, folks. It's been a day. I know everybody is
I'm still getting feedback.
I know. I am putting the buds away as we speak, so hopefully that will stop that business from happening.
Cool.
All right. I think it will.
Nope.
No. All right. Then I'll just hold it back here and I'll talk from
Nope.
Why are we so hot?
I don't know.
I don't know. I guess I'll hold it from like way far away. Jeez Louise. It's been one of those days. So let's just say we're starting a live. Here we are. It's been a crazy day for me so far, and I'm totally not surprised that we're having tech issues because stuff like this has been happening like off and on for I don't know, the last several days for me. Has anything like this? I know you had some tech issues
I did last week, yeah.
last week too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just need to turn the volume down
Yes.
on ye old iPad. Maybe that'll save it. Is that better?
Too early to tell.
All right. Well, let's hope so. Anyway.
Nope.
Cheap.
Yeah, cheap. It was happening last time we did a live too, but not quite this bad.
That's so weird. I'm going to try propping up the iPad and not touching it and seeing if that will help the issue. For anybody who is actually listening along right now, apologies.
Bear
This is
with
what
us.
happens. This is what happens when you decide to do lives. You don't get the added benefit of cleaning everything up in post.
Yeah.
Before y'all hear it. But the fun part about a live is that, we get to be a little more topical.
And you can hear all the stupid shit we say that we can't edit out later.
That's true. We have zero filter.
Mm-hmm.
Zero filter. Okay, this is still weird.
I have a little filter, but sometimes it slips.
Oh. Anyhow, I don't know about you, but I think I've given up on this intro for this time around. You've been introduced.
Welcome to using our inside voice.
Welcome to Lionsgate.
Yes, rar.
Rar. Rar, rar, rar.
I mean, there has been a lot of excitement on the social medias about today.
There is, and that seems to be consistent. I mean, if I think about my personal journey, I don't think I really had Lionsgate on my radar until about it's been maybe about 10 years or so. So
Less than that for me.
So that's still relatively new in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's interesting to me because like in my own personal path, I started out from, a very traditional Christian household. And, from the time of being a teenager, kind of moved into aligning more with paganism, and I don't know that I would really say Wiccan friendly, but I don't think I was narrowing it down that much.
Hmm.
And I went from that to kind of encompassing, you know, anything that I could get my hands on that I identified with and could find value in. So my spirituality, like home base, really grew to include quite a bit, which meant quite a few holidays, quote unquote holidays, quite a few quote unquote sabbats, and days of importance. And after a while, especially when you're choosing to subscribe to more than you're, subscribing to more than not subscribing to, that list of days becomes quite long.
Hmm.
And there's things that I've been doing since I was a teenager. So there's a lot of, more pagan sabbats that I probably follow a lot more closely. And in Lionsgate, it's come around more recently to me. And it's not that I haven't celebrated it or haven't, done rituals or ceremonies or, things of that sort concerning Lionsgate. I have. But for me in particular, like I have no fire in my chart, like zero. And I have very little water in my chart. I think there's two. So I am really mostly air and earth. And although I am very much a lover of the element of fire, like I would consider myself a bit of a pyro. Like I love a nice flame. I love, I don't love heat. Heat is not my friend.
Hmm.
I'm a very pale girl, very pale skin. And so, going out and basking in the sun, and that's not necessarily very high on my list. And fire energy in general is not very high on my list. So when it comes to like things that surround summer and that are very big on fire energy, I tend to not be as enthusiastic about those things as a lot of people.
You are really couching your terms, lady.
I don't like it.
Thank you. At least it's honest.
I mean, the other things were honest too. That wasn't not honest. It's not like I hate it. I don't I don't hate Lionsgate. I'm just not as enthusiastic as everybody else, and sometimes I feel kind of like a schmuck because I'm not as like, I have to gather all of my things and do all of the things. Like, can I come in yoga pants?
That is utterly ridiculous, though.
Can I light a tea
That's like
candle?
saying Jewish people are killjoys for Christmas. Like, who says that? Who does that? Who thinks that? Okay, me every once in a while. But aside from me, I think everybody understands that you have to pick and choose which holidays, quote unquote, you um you subscribe to. There's too many. And if it doesn't resonate, it doesn't resonate.
But it's hard. Like, it's harder when you decide to be like more involved in the spiritual community and you look at like I had a moment earlier when I was trying to I was thinking about it, and I was getting some visuals, and in my head it was kind of like my big fat Greek wedding, when she's going to school with her little paper lunch sack of moussaka, and
Hmm.
all the other girls have like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and everybody is like, ew, what do you have? And it's like, and all the little blonde girls are sitting at the table, and then there's like the one little, hefty girl at the other table with her moussaka. And I'm like, I feel like I'm the girl at the other table sometimes because I'm like, not, woohoo, I'm going to get dressed up and I'm going to wear all fire colors and I'm going to light some flames and I'm going to manifest and I'm going to write down all my lists. And I'm going to be so, so happy about this major conjunction of Sirius and the sun and Orion's belt and like all the other things. I'm like, okay, it's it's 8/8. It's a cool day for doing manifesting things. Yay. I like manifesting things, but like I'm not I'm not down for like I'm not going to any fire ceremonies tonight. Like I don't think I'll be watching a meditation or anything online. Like I'm not going to join a circle. Like this is it.
Right.
Hello, my name is Jamie. I am currently celebrating Lionsgate, and this is how I'm doing it.
I
I'm doing a
mean, you're
podcast.
literally having a live podcast. That's a pretty huge expenditure of energy and acknowledgement of an energetic portal that you don't resonate with. So I think you've met your quota for spiritual correctness. But what if we went back to that lunch table and we changed our perspective to be, I'm sitting at the table I want to sit at and they're at the wrong table? Or what if we don't judge the tables at all and just hang out at our own table, happily doing our podcasts? What if that?
Yeah, like, like I don't care one way or another. Like, more power to you if this is your day and it makes you excited and, it helps you put things in perspective and it helps you, get in a space of intention for the rest of the year. Like, more power to you. I'm all for it. Like, yay, you. But, um, yeah, it's just like I'm a 5/5 girl. Like that's my manifesting time and it's in my birth month. So like that one I hang with a little more, and I get it that there's other astrological things happening during Lionsgate, but much like I feel like I have some peculiar peculiar I can't
Peculiarities.
yes, that what she said. Which I cannot say today for some reason. Um like most people really have a hard time with Mercury retrograde. Like that's my ruling planet, and I'm like, oh yay, do-overs. Woo woo. Let's do a do-over. I'm cool with do-overs. So I'm usually like skipping along having mostly a fine time with Mercury retrogrades where most people are like, I hate you. Um like I'll have tech issues sometimes, but like right now I am having way more tech issues today than I have with like the last 3 or 4 Mercury retrogrades, to be honest. Like that's usually the only problems that I'll see are like tech stuff during that time, but this is way worse. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if it's just because there's friction between the fire and I or what.
Well, I think your
But
feedback problem had something to do with me because I'm not, even though I know I should, I don't have any earbuds. And I think your phone was picking up your voice through my phone. So hopefully
oh,
I've managed to curb that a little bit. But until I get earbuds, I think that that's just going to be a thing. But what I wanted to say was that for me, these portals, these celebrations that people pick up on, I take a different approach to that kind of energy. Um, I basically say, to my guides, is there something I need to pay attention to during this time? And I very much let the energy lead me into whatever experience it whatever experience I'm supposed to have. And there's a sense of challenge in me over that. I don't, just because everybody's celebrating it, the benefit of everybody celebrating something together is it creates a surge that meets what is already a surge. So the surge of energy of the idea of this alignment and what it can provide energetically and what light codes it may, pass on to us or through us is met with a surge of so many people being excited about receiving those light codes. And that's magical. However, if something is not really floating my boat, I'm not going to go out of my way. I already don't go out of my way most of the time in terms of these energetic special occasions. I don't do a whole lot of ritual work. I have a cabinet of oils. I have a shelf of crystals. I very rarely use them. I very rarely meditate. As far as spiritual observation goes, my spiritual work takes place almost 24/7 within my head. I don't use a whole lot of tools.
Right.
I haven't bought a crystal in years. That's just who I am spiritually. I decided when I was getting really involved with my guides and talking to them very conversationally, I decided those permission slips were not things that I needed to use or they didn't resonate with me anymore. And it just sort of happened naturally. It's not that I rebelled, it's not that I made a conscious decision. It was just that every time I went to go do something like that, especially by myself, it was just like, eh, if, however, I am with another person who is excited about it, then I can support their excitement, and their excitement ignites my excitement, and there is group excitement, and yay, let's do the thing.
Sure.
So when you were like, hey, do you want to do a podcast for 8-8? I was like, yay. But not because it was 8-8, but because I like podcasting and a lot of energies have been coming through.
Yeah, that's true. And my excitement wasn't as much about it being 8-8 as it was about just getting the opportunity to do a live, because I think we're growing to the point where we actually really enjoy doing the live, and it's kind of nice to be able to do it on the fly and let whatever comes through, because again, I think the closer that we can get to like how this naturally works for us, which most of the time is just us talking over the phone to each other,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and and this is really close to that. So and that seems to be when they kind of tap us on the shoulder the most. Not that that doesn't happen during recording, it does. It just means that everybody else has to wait before they can join in, and yeah. So
And partake.
and partake, and and it's a little less fuss. It's also a little less it's a little less polished. Definitely, like as you can tell with the sound
Santa's
stuff, but
reindeer.
we'll get, we'll get that smoothed out, as we go along too. I'm sure, as things update for apps and such, it'll get a little smoother, and as we kind of figure out which devices hold up better. Like tonight, I am using the iPad for the first time instead of the little tiny phone, because as many of you may have come to realize, as you get older and your eyesight starts to go, for the generation who grew up watching White Christmas, as Bing Crosby said, it's like playing the old trombone. You're kind of like holding it far away and then up close, and far away and up close, and trying to hit all those little buttons and trying to figure out like what the hell's going on when you're on a phone is not easy.
I'm
So
sure they can empathize. But what
I
I
moved on
want
to
to know,
iPad. Yeah.
is outside of the technical difficulties, have you been getting any information? Have you been getting, I think you mentioned breadcrumbs the other night. What kind of breadcrumbs?
Yeah. So it has been interesting. Like, and people tend to say that, the gate opens, what? I think it opened technically on the 26th or the
Mm-hmm.
27th, somewhere around there. And I will say during that time, things have been coming through. And for me, one of the most interesting things is, like, I'm also a medical intuitive. So the guides will tend to tap me about, like, medical stuff as well. And a little while ago, I was tapped about, like, I couldn't sleep. I was having a hard time sleeping one night, and I got up, and my guides tapped me to watch a very particular video on the vagus nerve. And I'm like, all right, vagus nerve stuff. I haven't approached that in a while. Sure, why not? Let's see what the vagus nerve meditation is.
First of all, what is the vagus nerve?
So the vagus nerve is the longest nerve. It's really a system because there's a left and a right vagus nerve, but we tend to talk about them as one thing, the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve runs pretty much throughout the body. So it has a lot of pull on mental faculties as well as your heart and your digestive system. Um,
That
so
was mental faculties, not metal faculties, right?
mental
Okay,
faculties
just checking.
with an N, mental. Um, and there's a lot of things that kind of come into play, like if you're anxious or you're finding yourself depressed. um some of that may actually be a vagus nerve issue, like the vagus nerve kind of being out of whack and needing to be reset. And it can kind of snowball into having other issues like heart palpitations and, again, digestive issues. And I was having some digestive issues and I was having some anxiety. So I'm like, okay, well, this seems to fit. This works. Let's watch this meditation and see what it's see what comes up out of it. And one of the first things that happened in the meditation was um, a little bit of a reset where the gal that I was watching asked everybody to, lay down and let their gaze go to wherever it just naturally wanted to settle, whatever it naturally wanted to settle on. And I noticed that I was having a hard time with that. Like, one of the first things that I noticed is normally when I'm going to meditate, I'll lay down and get in a comfortable spot and kind of, there I have a couple of things that I work through to try to get my body to relax a little bit more. And then I close my eyes right away. And that's just a normal part of what I've done, what I've been doing since I was, you know, 13, 15 years old. It's been a while. And what I noticed is one of the things that she said is if you are finding that you are closing your eyes, open your eyes back up and just, let your gaze fall wherever it wants to, but keep your eyes open and pay attention to your breathing. And I noticed that when I did that, all of a sudden, like, my breathing sped up and I was breathing more shallow and in my chest. And I'm like, what? Whoa, wait a second here. That's anxiousness. That's anxiety. Why with the anxiety right now? And then she kind of walked you through, you know, adjusting your breathing and letting, leaving your eyes gazed on that fixed point and allowing your breathing to kind of return. And all of a sudden my guides hit me with, that's a trick that you do when you are uncomfortable or you're anxious or you are dealing with something that is uncomfortable for you. You will close your eyes, and that is your sign to yourself basically to leave your body. And I was like, I'll be damned. I have been doing that. Like, son of a bitch. I have noticed that that is definitely a thing, and it was so subtle that had I not gone through this, I would not have picked up on it. And basically what came out of that was the realization that although I have been doing a lot of shadow work and a lot of work on releasing and working through certain issues and trying to be more embodied, I have been working on the mental, emotional, and energetic portion of the issue, but I have not been working on the more physical, I guess you would call side effects of those issues or trauma. So while I've been processing things out the other way through the more mental facets of it, I have not been processing things actually physically through the body, which has left me in a really interesting spot. It means that now I have physical repercussions of holding that trauma, but I haven't dealt with it. But although on the physical level that is, but although I've dealt with it on the mental level, now having removed that, it's like I have stored stuff in my physical body, but no attachment to what that stuff, quote unquote, actually is. Because mentally, emotionally, and energetically, I've worked through it.
Right.
Physically, I have not.
Right.
So it left me in kind of a precarious place. And I've kind of been dealing with it ever since. And a lot of it means that I've been kind of physically uncomfortable for the last, what is it, week, 2 weeks? So yeah, I've been working through that and trying to get more in touch with the vagus nerve. And it's interesting because it's actually really easy to work with the vagus nerve. Like I
How,
didn't
what
I
does working with it look like?
so there's a lot of different ways to do it, but it could be as simple as I'm like, here is a fun exercise. If you lay down and you, again, kind of what the gal was explaining in the meditation that I was doing, allow your gaze to kind of settle on whatever it wants to. Keep your eyes open and kind of start to regulate your breathing. If you're breathing faster or a little more shallow, you know, just very naturally allow yourself to settle into a place of, being in here and now. And in the here and now, you're safe and you're protected and you're in your own little pocket, so you're good. And then turning not turning your head, but just shifting your eyesight to the right and holding it for 30 seconds and kind of going through the same kind of exercise with regulating your breathing, and then bringing your eye line back to center and then shifting it to the left and doing the same thing and then bringing it back to center. And it's really amazing how much that actually does. Like, one of the things that that she was talking about was, well, once you kind of come back up, if you have been tight, like in the neck and shoulder area, now turn your head left and right and see how much farther your range of motion is just from doing that, because that nerve has relaxed and is in a more balanced state.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rest of your body has fallen in line. And I was like, I'll be damned. That's like a real thing. And this is kind of falls in line with, if there's people out there who work with like somatic response, this kind of gets lumped into that kind of work as well. And like, if you've done a lot of somatic response work, you probably have done work with the vagus nerve, because that tends to be like a big target for people who do that work.
What is somatic response?
So somatic response, and I'm probably not going to explain it very well. There are people who are far more in tune with it than I am. But somatic response has a lot to do with embodiment and being in the here and now, and kind of bringing your attention back to the here and now, and working on kind of allowing yourself to reconnect with whatever is in the present, and disconnecting yourself from the worry of either the past or the future. So really focusing and using something physical to focus on. So either doing little exercises like that where you're helping to relax the vagus nerve. I know there are people who like have full-blown like workouts centered around that. I know that there are folks that have done like ice bath therapy in conjunction with somatic response. So kind of plugging another person that I know has done a lot of that work, and actually has a lot of interviews with various people that she's worked with concerning somatic response, if that's something that interests you. Leanne Rhymes, of all people, has a podcast, and that's the type of work that she does quite a bit. And her podcast is Holy Human, WHOLLY, Human.
Mm-hmm.
And
we'll list it in our insights.
Yeah, we'll list it in our insights. But she's done quite a few interviews with various teachers and gurus that she's worked with that works in somatic response. And that really seems to be something that works for her. And she posts about it on her IG. That's not her music IG, but the IG that's like her kind of more spiritual space.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was kind of interesting working through, just the thought of that something so tiny, such a tiny little shift of closing my eyes has been cutting me off from a rather significant portion of the work that I've been doing,
Mm-hmm.
completely without my knowledge. And it's interesting that, like, I didn't necessarily get upset over it, but I got really curious about it. I was like, dang, man, that's big. It's big, but it can also be shifted with like a fairly tiny minor adjustment, which was nice. The working through the physical stuff has not been fun. That's been a lot harder.
Well, because you're playing catch up.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, trying to clear out a backlog of just gunk. So yeah, so that has not been fun, but at least now I know And
Knowing is half the battle.
definitely knowing is half the battle. And finding something that was so simple to kind of help work through it was a relief.
Well, I think that's the thing,
Um,
though. I think that for most of the stuff that we encounter, it is a small, when we finally find that root, we always imagine, like when I say you need to find the very core of that root and you need to pull it out. But when we finally are turned on to the real root, it is linked to something so minute that we would have continued to miss it forever if things hadn't aligned just perfectly for us to understand the message.
totally.
And it's so much easier. The hardest part of healing is becoming aware.
Absolutely.
And once you're aware, it's like, oh, so I just stop doing this thing and start doing this thing instead. I think I can do that. And then, you do that. And before you know it, you are a different person and you're getting completely different results in your life.
Absolutely. It's really interesting how something, again, how something that seems so minor can shift, one way or the other. And it works in both directions, just like the shift out of it was very minor, but the shift into it was very minor, but it caused a lot of it caused a lot of issues that I
Sure.
just wasn't, I wasn't really tuned into. So yeah, it's kind of crazy how that
Well, I think
works.
I know a lot has been coming through for me regarding the handshakes we make with survival. And the guides have been likening the energy or idea of survival to shaking hands with a demon. Because that it's so subtle when we do it. And we're so young when it happens that we don't stand a chance of being completely conscious or aware of the decision we're making on our own behalf that follows us long into adulthood.
Sure.
And that's why it's a simple fix once you find out about it. But
Yeah.
where is it hidden within you? And what kind of stars have to align, fitting for this day, in order to make us aware that that's what we've chosen our entire lives?
Absolutely. No, I
So
totally get that.
so it sounds like Lionsgate actually really gifted you something huge, even though, you didn't step into the ritual, you didn't step into the hoorah energy, and you were kind of down, on yourself about being a bad witch, but you got the best thing you could have gotten out of the energy.
It's very true.
So yay, you win. Woohoo.
Yay! I win Vegas Nerve Reset energy. Woo!
Level up.
Cue Scott Pilgrim. Yay!
For me, well, for me, the portal opened and I received like I had an aha moment and I posted about it on our Instagram. And I knew the second I posted about that, I literally heard my guide say, and now you get a new lesson. And I was like, no, no, let me revel in my success. And they're like, no. And literally, like the next day, or maybe if I was lucky, the day after, death spiral.
Oh no.
And I was like, what? And then I posted about that. I posted that the veil was thin, but don't despair because your guides are with you and they're using the current energies to make you aware of the work that you need to do. And sure enough, the next day I was like, I'm so aware. Painfully aware. And of course, it all happened to be revolving around abundance or a lack thereof, and what that's going to mean for my life moving forward. And all this stuff was coming up. And honestly, I don't know what happened, I was down in the dumps, and it was even reflecting in my computer. Like, when I went to do the art for our Instagram posts, my computer was like, yeah, you can't use that brush because your computer's full. And I was like, how? How is it so full that I can't use a brush? How is it so full that I literally can't do one action? I can't save one more picture. I can't add one more layer. I can't do any of that. And I saw a connection between what I was spiraling about emotionally, and it was reflecting directly to me in my computer that I use all the time. And I spent the next few days working out the problems with my computer so I could continue on the path that I wanted to continue on. And there's no coincidence there that as I worked through each little aspect of solving this computer issue that was causing the problem externally, it was also helping me resolve and reflecting directly the issue that I was having internally. And I was like, well, that's fucking magical, but it sucks. Like, it sucks
Right.
every day, every minute of every day. This sucks. I'm tired. I don't know how I'm going to meet my deadlines. I don't know how I'm going to continue to create. This is threatening everything I want to do with my life. And the guides were like, this is threatening everything you want to do with your life, just like your point of view is threatening everything you want to do with your life.
Ouch.
In the same way, there is literally no separation between what your computer is giving you as feedback and what you are doing to yourself internally.
Ouch.
As long as you hold this mentality that, you're going to lose everything and you're going to have to go work for some dumbass, you are headed down that path because there's no room for expansion. You are giving yourself no choice. And I was like, that's terrifying. And they're like, good. Be scared. That at least you're being scared about something that's real then.
Right.
And I was like, whoa. Whoa, I don't know exactly what to do with this. And the only thing you can do when you don't know what to do with information they're giving you is sit with it. That's
Yeah.
all you can do. Because most of the time, what they're asking you to do is just let it sink in. They're not asking you to judge it. They're not asking you to act on it. They're not asking you to do anything except let it be a truth for a minute. And the more you sit with it, the more you're able to see how you are choosing things that will create the exact thing you do not want. And that was the beginning. That was just the beginning of my Lionsgate portal. The portal continued on and it got easier for me. But as it got easier for me, I ran into friends who were expressing to me the difficulties they were having with it. And my own frustrations aside, I was getting downloads as a result of speaking with these people and seeing their perspective. And they really kept coming. I've had like 4, and I don't even know that it feels like so much that I didn't even know what to do with it. I had to write it down. Not only because I made a deal with the guides that is what I would do when they gave me information, but because if I didn't write it down, I wouldn't be able to process it all. It was too big. So one of those downloads was talking about the blessing and the curse of the pandemic. And even as I say pandemic or lockdown, those hot button words, I'm aware that censorship has been such an issue around these topics that I have to make a conscious decision not to couch my terms. So I'm making a conscious decision to not couch my terms with regards to this experience, because this is what we've experienced. We experienced 2 years of stopping. And a friend of mine was telling me last week how the last 2 years have felt like nothing but loss. Loss of money, loss of people, loss of friends, people moving away, people and pets dying. It just feels like grief and loss to her. And what the guide said was that it wasn't any more so than any other time in our lives. However, we didn't have all of the distractions
Yeah,
that
it
we
was in your
usually have.
face.
Yeah, to draw us away from it. And without those distractions, we were forced to really take a look at the decisions we were making on our own behalf. And that includes, how am I spending my time? Who am I spending my time with? What am I distracting with myself with? Where is my energy going? You know, it really forced us to curate or start to pay attention to how we curate our own abundance. And abundance, of course, starts way before money, way before material interests. That's the manifestation into this realm. But it starts with our energy, and it starts with our intention, and it starts with our wisdom. All of these things that we just take for granted and give away every day of our lives. And that's the blessing part, is that now we are aware enough, now that things are starting to pick back up and move, we are going to run into blockages every time we start to try and reclaim what was.
Sure.
And those blockages are in our best interests because they're alerting us to things that we have yet to change for our own benefit.
That we haven't dealt with yet or addressed or really taken the time to sit with,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you've done work already in that department, but it's time for you to move to the next level of that lesson, and you're kind of dragging your feet or digging your heels in and don't want to.
Well, and beyond dragging your feet or digging your heels in, because that's definitely happening, and that's part of what I was going through when Lionsgate, opened, was a resistance to um, being okay with better.
Right.
I mean, that's the problem in a nutshell, is that I'm afraid to be okay with better, because if I don't get better, things will get worse.
Yeah, right.
Woohoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. Like, what?
Not cuckoo. Not cuckoo
It
at
feels
all.
insane.
Of course, it feels insane, but I think a lot of people can relate to being in that space. It sounds insane to ourselves when we say it out loud,
Mhm.
because of course you want better, duh, and why would you not be okay with better? But it is a real thing, because you get attached to that particular, well, to the particular story, that particular narrative, and the way that you operate within that little tiny space. You
Right.
may have been navigating that tiny space for a really long time, and although it sucks, you're familiar enough with it to where you're like, well, do I want to deal with am I more okay dealing with the familiar even though it sucks? Or am I, going to be okay dealing with the better, even though it's unfamiliar and therefore scary, and I don't know how to operate in that bubble. I don't know how to be in that bubble.
Or even if that bubble exists.
Yeah. Or fearful of the bubble not existing.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally.
And therein lies the description of the handshake with safety.
Right.
And what they wanted us to know was that what you have to understand is, once you change that behavior, once you change that pattern, once you switch out that belief system and shift into one that is more suitable to what you want to create, in order to manifest it into the 3D, this density, this whatever you want to call it, frequency, dimension, choose a word, insert it here. You have to think of it as like when you're using your essential oils and they're coming out like one slow drop at a time, and you're like, how do I get more to come out? There's a reducer in the form of a veil of between what you desire to manifest and what is actually going to be reflected back to you in your external experience. And it may take a minute or a year for you to see where you're going and how it's reflecting back to you. And on top of that, this was the second part of the download that they gave when I was talking to my friend. They wanted us to know. Hold on, let me look because I have forgotten.
Right. I know I do that all the time. Or I'm like,
The
okay, I have to refer to my notes.
the energy they wanted, the message that came through was the energy is not of change, but of exchange.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Right? And as a result of that, you aren't necessarily going to be able to see the betterment of your existence until you're looking back.
Ooh, that shifts a lot. Really, it does. Because instead of just letting go of something, you're getting something in return. And they're like, here's the deal though. We're
Mhm.
gonna give you this, but you have to hand over X perspective.
Right.
Are you
Exactly.
willing to make the trade?
Hmm.
You know, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it does make a difference because it does mean that you're getting something for something. You're not losing it, because that whole mindset, that whole bubble that you sit yourself in and then you surround yourself with, does become a part of your identity after a while.
Yeah.
And it, in a really twisted, weird way, becomes more difficult to do the work to work through, because at the end of that, what are you left with? And if you're sitting in that perspective of lack and have nots, then the outcome of that looks like I'm losing something,
Right.
not I'm gaining
Right.
something. But this is putting a twist on that and saying, look, we're going to give you something, but right now your hands are full. So you're going to have to hand over that thing that's in your hand so that we can make the
Right.
swap. Are you willing to
Right.
swap?
And an example would be, um, I really, my apartment's small and it feels cramped. I feel like I've outgrown it. And over here, there's this apartment that is bigger, but of course costs more. And I can afford it, but I'm not sure how. Or I'm not feeling really comfortable with the idea of spending so much more money, but I have it. And then you make the decision to move to that apartment and it betters that aspect of your life. But for example, you lose a portion of the money that you were bringing in that made you comfortable spending that amount of money on that apartment. Not that
Mhm.
means you're in peril now and you can't afford it. You can still afford it, but guess what? You don't feel as comfortable. And the reason you don't feel as comfortable is because you've set certain handshakes with safety. I need a buffer of this much money in my account in order to feel safe.
Yeah.
And so that's what every decision we're making is based on. It's based on made up, sort of random buffers that make us feel and placate us into safety, but really what they're doing is they are a mechanism for denying our discomfort. And they are enabling us to continue making decisions. And every time we're safe, we go, phew, oh, thank God. Okay, I'm safe. See, I'm safe. And we use it to support our story, having no real clue whether or not it would have worked out regardless.
Right. And I definitely identify with that. I mean, how I spent 10 out of 17 years at a job that was making me physically ill, holding on to it because of a money aspect, of a story about a money aspect
Hmm.
of, if I'm going to continue to get sick, I'm going to have enough money to take care of myself instead of going, well, if I stop doing the job, I won't be as sick anymore and I won't need that. Like, it was kind of crazy when I figured out that I was working to be sick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, what the fuck? Like, who does that?
Everybody.
Who does that? And
Everybody.
I was so angry at myself for a while, which also wasn't fair. I made a lot of judgments on myself about it. It's like, look, it's cool, you know, it worked out the way that it needed to eventually, and you have takeaways, and one of the biggest takeaways is realizing that that was not a thing you needed to do.
Right. Well, and it's beyond that. It's beyond that was not a thing you needed to do. The takeaway was learning what is more important, what you really need to thrive. And it may not have shown you how to thrive because that is a deeper program that's still lodged in there. But it showed you, sure as shit, that working to be sick was never going to get you there.
Yeah.
So
That was not it.
it showed you what wasn't going to work, but tapping into what will work is a whole other story that I find everyone, including myself, is pretty much completely resistant to.
Yeah.
And no one ever likes to hear the answer. And I don't like to hear it when I have to give it because I'm resistant to it too. I mean, since Lionsgate started, I am much less resistant to it. I have come into a space where the only way I can describe it is that there is a hunger ignited in me, and the hunger that I feel for achieving and accomplishing what I want is greater than my desire to be safe.
Well, and I think that's where it has to start, honestly.
It's the only place.
Yeah. That's the leap of faith right there.
Yeah.
Is leaning into, this feels good.
Yeah.
I like this. This is firing me up. This is getting my energy going. This makes me want to start moving. This makes me want to start creating. And really, that's kind of, sometimes we get lost in the pomp and circumstance of the ritual and the ceremony, and we forget to get back to the basics of what's the actual lesson, or what is the actual platform of learning here. What is the benefit to this energy? And sometimes we get lost in all of the fluff, and not that ceremonies and rituals can't help us. They do. They help us to focus when we need that extra time and space to focus. But I think, kind of as we've branched out into things being a little bit more commercial in the spiritual sector too, sometimes we kind of, it's like getting excited about buying, Christmas presents and things like that. You're like, oh, I need all the tools. And it's like, well, really, the most important tools are within you. The things that you actually, open yourself up to, and connect to. And yes, tools can help you with that, and they can be great for that if you're lacking the focus and you need that. Just remember to strike a balance with it, so that the tools are actually supporting you in your growth, and not perpetuating the problem.
Sure. And I think that, the quickest way to say that is, have your rituals become routines.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly. Yeah.
The second I feel because I do a ritual every night. I do a ritual before bed. It helps me get into the mindset of, having a good night's sleep. Doesn't always work, but that's the point. Where I go through and, gratitude rituals make me want to throw up in my mouth, like want to throw up I would rather throw up in my mouth than do a gratitude ritual. However, the first part of that is tapping into what I truly appreciated about my day, what I enjoyed about it, what I appreciated about it, what, any sort of messages that came in, um, inspirations I had, that kind of gratitude I get behind
Yeah.
because it keeps me from thinking that when I feel like shit, that everything is shit. It's not all shit. You're just going through a thing right now. Calm down. Your guide still told you this, that, and the other thing. You still decided, hey, it sounds like a good idea, and I want to try doing this, that, and the other thing. The momentum has not died. The wind is not out of your sails. You're still moving forward because for me, forward momentum is life. Like if I feel stagnant, oh my gosh, it's a very difficult thing for me to deal with. That doesn't mean I don't deal with it. It doesn't mean I don't experience it. I experience it all the damn time.
Like, don't
All
tell me you didn't see anything good today, Cameron.
Whatever, Ferris. Um, so but by tapping into the good that did happen, like, and it could be as simple as something like, I made it to the store before the heat hit. I mean,
Dude,
it,
that's a thing right now. That
right?
is a thing.
It was not scorching when I went to the store. That's amazing. And I'm really, truly happy for that because it just made my life a little bit easier. And when life is feeling very overwhelming and heavy and hard, the things that make your life easier are things that you can be grateful for. So, long story short, too late. Gratitude. And then I call in source energy. I pillar the energy by running it through my body, sending it down into the earth, asking for healing. This is just the thing I do. I send a wave of love across the planet, which is way more kumbaya than I'd ever admit to being, except in front of however many people are going to hear this very intimate setting. Not the kind of kumbaya I usually am down for, but truly heartfelt and mean it every time. And then I pull the energy back up through my crown and send it back to source with gratitude. After that, I talk about the day that I have following. What do I want to accomplish? I'd like to do this, that, and the other thing. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it to the store tomorrow because I just feel like shit. And I think I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get out of bed. And so I ask my guides, if there's a way you can inspire me or motivate me to get my ass out of bed, I'd really appreciate it, And 10 out of 10, they do it. 10 out of 10 the next day, I feel that sort of welling of inspiration. Girl, just get it out of the way. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So take it minute by minute. Take your time. Do your thing. Get it done before the sun starts to breathe. And I get it done the next day.
Yeah.
I don't remember why I fucking started talking about this. I got lost in my own tangent.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a thing that we do. We get
Yeah,
lost in our
it
own
is.
tangents.
It
But it's
is.
usually for
Prepare
good
yourselves.
reason.
Yeah, prepare yourselves.
But I think it's really important, because we were talking about rituals and kind of, there's the rituals that are actually helping you, and then there's the rituals that are like the pomp and circumstance rituals.
Right. And that ritual helps me. However, if I'm in a place where I'm hating everything and I'm like, crying all the time and I'm not doing well, I tell my guides, you know what? I don't have it in me tonight and I don't know when I will again. And I don't let myself feel bad about that. I don't punish myself for skipping a night or changing it up. If something stops working for me, I ask myself instead of, say stopping it, I'm not going to do that anymore because I hate it. I say, well, I'm not doing that anymore because I hate it. And then I say, but what would I like to do instead? What would make more sense for who I am in this moment?
Yeah.
And by doing that,
What works better for me?
yeah, and not just what works better for me, but what works better for the me I am right now. It acknowledges that you've changed. And that instantly puts you in the mindset, oh, I've changed. That means things are moving. That means things aren't stagnant.
Mhm.
That means I'm not stuck. I'm just in a new space that's uncomfortable.
Well, and it's nice because the me that you are right now isn't necessarily the you that you're going to be tomorrow
Right.
either. It's simply the you that you are in this moment, which again, that kind of ties back into like the talking about like the somatic response as well, because it's very much about being in the present. And so that kind of work and kind of cluing into that definitely helps to connect you more to the right now, and understanding that it's temporary, and that we're always changing. We're
Yeah.
always changing on a daily basis, on a minute to minute basis. We're changing. We have all of these false ideas about security, and what that looks like. It's really more about what it feels like. If you can feel safe right in this moment, then there's a possibility that you are going to feel safe tomorrow. There's also a possibility that you won't feel safe tomorrow. But there was also the possibility today that you weren't going to feel safe right now, but you do. So it kind of opens you up a little bit more to possibility, and not always having that possibility seem like something that's bad that's looming over you, but
Mm-hmm.
something that's exciting that you can engage in and pull from to help create, minute by minute as you move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that little shift in understanding is another one of those keys that unlocks our ability to completely shift how we live our lives,
Yeah.
because it's not going to be, again, it's not going to be a change, it's going to be an exchange. I'm giving up my fear for this minute so that I can move on to the next minute with less fear. I'm giving up my fear for this day so that I can use this day to accomplish whatever I feel is in my best interest. I'm going to give up my fear for this week. I've looked ahead and I see for this whole week, I'm going to be okay. So that means that I have an abundance of time on my hands to use for things that further my joy and my comfort. And I want to use those resources to do this, that, and the other thing. That's how you start to shift from your handshake with safety into a more active pursuit of the thing that has you've never dared pursue because it felt too uncomfortable.
Well, and it creates flexibility, and I like that.
And space. The space creates
Yeah.
flexibility. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice because you have the option of, in any moment, of being able to shift where you're at and turn to a different direction.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't like this road. This road is bumpy. Okay, well, look, there's a whole open field that I can trek through. Let's go see what it feels like to do that.
Right.
And if you don't like that, then you can shift from there. And you can continue to shift as much as you like until you find something that does work for you, that does feel good in that moment, or that does, excite you, or elicit more joy, or just a feeling of at least balance.
Right.
So you're not always stuck, feeling like you're stuck in the mud, or that you are resigned to a particular road because that's the one that you've been on, and that's the one that's, feels comfortable and well traveled.
And
Yeah.
the other thing about what you're saying that I think is so important to look at with a conscious eye is that, say you're on the road and the road is too bumpy. So you decide to cross the field. And when you're crossing the field, you run into the muck and mire and you get stuck. What if instead of when you get stuck in the muck and mire, instead of saying, oh, I should have stayed on the road, it was bumpy, but it was better than this. What if while you're in the muck and mire, you make the decision to view that as exactly where you're supposed to be and recognize that while you were focused on getting from point A to point B, the real journey that your higher self had in store for you was, it needed a necessary detour. So it gave you a bumpy road that it knew was going to make you choose a different course of action. And it put you in the muck and mire so that you could learn how to accept help, or how to meet new people, or how to accomplish something that will later on become a building block for the new life that you would like to create.
Or maybe you just need to sit your happy ass down and play in the mud.
True. Maybe you do need to sit your happy ass down or your unhappy ass down and just sit there for a while.
And play in the mud.
Yep. Totally play. And
Squish your
again,
toes in it.
play.
Yeah. And take it as an opportunity to play and laugh at the absurdity of being stuck in the mud. Because sometimes you just need to sit down and have yourself a laugh at the absurdity of life.
Yeah, and like what other choice do you have, really? Like you can either accept that you are now a stick in the mud, or you cannot accept it, rail against it, get yourself in deeper because the lesson's only going to intensify as you fight it, and not learn until you reach the same conclusion that accepting it in the first place could have brought you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I feel like I've made a lot of headway in that area myself over the last several years. Like, I can look at situations and go, yeah, had that happened 5 years ago, like, I would have been completely derailed. Like, I would have had a meltdown, I would have had a breakdown. It would not have been okay. Like, full panic attack. And hyperventilating and scrambling to try to make things work that just weren't going to, that were not meant to.
Banging your head against the wall, trying to just get something to happen in the same way over and over.
Yeah.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is exhausting, but it's funny to me now to look at myself, and even in the times when I get anxious and I do have a day, it's usually a a couple of hours of meltdown instead of a full day or a full week or a full month of meltdown.
Right.
And it really frees me up to go, okay, well, I made it through that, and I'm still fine, and I'm still breathing, and I'm still here. And now I have a couple of ideas about what I may be able to do to, help with whatever's next.
Right.
And I feel like not only am I handling it better, in a mental and physical space, but as far as actual workability of being able to, brain something new that might help, that's getting a little bit easier to do as time goes on. And I am very happy with that. And sometimes I forget to stop and go, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
That's a big accomplishment. Take the small wins. And I think we've been saying that a lot lately, but the small wins are really a lot bigger than you realize, because it's putting a major dent in your perspective. Like that thing that you do that seems like a small thing right now builds into being a whole new outlook eventually, because that that is building kind of a new safety for yourself, where you're like, well, I allowed myself to be uncomfortable for a while and I didn't die and my world didn't come crumbling down, and I thought of something else to do and I found joy in that something else that I did, and then things kind of worked out and so it wasn't that bad anyway. That's shifting your perspective,
Absolutely.
and that's shifting your reality, and that's shifting your whole
Yeah.
life. So that seemingly little thing that you did is actually huge.
And it's the only way it's going to happen. Because if you try
Yeah.
to force a huge change based on the knowledge that what you're doing isn't working, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be resisting what you're trying without coming up with any game plan for something new. You're just going to be not doing.
Yeah. It's being stagnant.
It's worse than being stagnant. It's being resistant. Even if
Yeah.
there were momentum, you couldn't catch the crazy train because you would be resisting not doing what you're focused on. You're still focused on the same thing. And as long as you're focused on that thing, you can't move forward. So the only way to do it is through these small shifts of perspective that say, hey, I know this thing is looming and it's right around the corner. Let's just put that on the shelf for today. And what do we need? How do we need to handle ourselves? How do we need to take care of our wants and needs today?
Yeah.
And pursue what you have control over, because otherwise, I don't know about you all, but for me, the second I get into panic mode, everything shuts down.
Yeah.
I can't brain anything. I can't troubleshoot how to take a knife out of the kitchen drawer. You know, I can't accomplish anything when I'm in panic mode. It literally catches in my throat, tenses my entire body, and my brain goes foggy.
Yeah.
And the only way to not throw yourself into panic mode is to allow yourself baby steps.
Yeah. And I think for those of us who are empaths, who tend to spend more time in, connecting to our upper senses and our upper chakras and floating around in that world, because it tends to feel more safe, since we've been talking about that word a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we take the opportunity to kind of sit in that space a little bit more and let the feelings flow through, instead of blocking them and immediately going to the what, I want to cut everything off.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, when you're doing that, you're blocking your flow, you're blocking the flow of energy, you're blocking your port for release of any of that, and it is getting caught up in your physical body somewhere, and then your physical body is going to hold it and respond to it. So as you're making those little shifts along the way, if you can sit in a little pocket of uncomfortable and kind of, maybe use some of the somatic response exercises as you're going along and helping to relax the vagus nerve and helping to just breathe for a moment. And instead of letting your brain go immediately to either shut down or to, everything's a disaster, go, well, wait a second. If I really tune in to the room around me, I'm fine. The room's fine. Nothing's fallen. Nothing's broken. Nothing's on fire. Nothing's under water. Like, honestly, I'm okay. Like, is there any reason to dial 911 right now? Seriously, if there's no reason to dial 911 right now, then you are fine. it may not feel fine because your mind is racing to, you know, thumbing through stories that you've created about, you know, about the weight of whatever the situation is. But maybe if you can relax and, you know, do the breathing and focus your gaze and keep your eyes open and not cut yourself off,
Or whatever your
then
trick is.
yeah, whatever your trick is, you know, and actually allow that energy to move through the physical body so that you're not, you know, weighing yourself down with something that is just unnecessary. I think as empaths we tend to do that to ourselves a lot. We end up with a lot of little, you know, tricks in our bag that we don't even realize we've accumulated for, you know, keeping ourselves quote unquote safe
Well,
from.
the very nature of becoming an empath
Yeah.
is you are picking up on energetic and emotional cues in your environment for the purpose of keeping yourself alive,
Yeah.
for the purpose of monitoring every little thing so that you can try to negotiate your environment because you feel unsafe in it. And when we start to awaken, the whole purpose of awakening is to take the tools that we've gained from being empaths, becoming empaths, and use those tools to better our lives in a new way. So
Yeah.
it's not discarding everything you've learned and trying to pick up fresh new tools. It's looking at the tools you've developed and asking yourself, now how can I apply these to what I want instead of what I don't want?
Well, and asking yourself what truly is a tool and what is a wrench in the works. Because
Well, and the wrench
sometimes,
in the works is going to be a coping mechanism.
yeah, is a coping mechanism. And, you know, eventually it's even the wrench in the works is going to help you realize where you need to be. It's just a matter of, you know, getting to a place where you can see that and then decide to try on something different than what you've been putting on, you know,
Yeah.
or picking up and playing with. It's yeah.
It's all a path to becoming conscious of your choices.
Yeah.
The path up until now has been all about being conscious of your surroundings. And now it has changed. The landscape has changed and it exists inside of you. And it's all about becoming conscious of your own choices and how they are continuing to manifest the life that you had been taught to live.
Yeah. Man, it's going to be it. Well, it already is, but it is going to be a very interesting shadow season.
I mean, it really already is. Yeah.
I mean, you know, it seems like for years now I have been saying every year shadow season is coming sooner and sooner every year.
Yeah.
Like we're tapping into it more and more. It's coming more to the forefront, and this year is definitely no exception. I feel like we touched a lot on shadow season in spring even, and now that we're getting even closer, like there's a lot. I know there's also been a lot coming up recently about like working with the ancestors and kind of seeing that work maybe a little bit differently than we had in the past. I mean, everybody works through their stuff differently and has different practices on how they connect. But I know that I have been looking at my own work a little bit differently than I had in the past, and switching it up a little bit. And I think that's important too, is to remember that even though you may have developed certain practices over the years that are your tried and true, there are going to come times when the energy has shifted enough to where maybe it doesn't work like it used to, and instead of getting frustrated with that, you know, finding the space within yourself to release a little bit of your, your quote unquote system for doing that, and creating a new one, or letting it morph into something different than what it had been, to best benefit the work that you're doing right
Mm-hmm.
now.
And how exciting is it that, because I'm seeing a pattern here, and patterns are indicators of where we're at on our journey. And what I'm seeing is that, you know, the closer these eruptions get, shadow seasons happening earlier and earlier every year, my lessons are coming more closer and closer together. That means if you envision it like a big mountain that you are trying to reach the pinnacle, that as you spiral up and around that mountain, you get closer and closer to the pinnacle. And so, of course, the cycle is shortening.
Yeah.
And that means that we're succeeding. That means that we're moving forward. That means that we are conquering that mountain. And that's exciting.
Yeah, there's less to process. There's not as much downtime needed.
Well, we're getting better at processing what's coming through, but what's coming through feels so much more surprising and deeper.
It does. It does, but I think we're developing the tools within ourselves to move through that with more of an open understanding of like what we're actually being taught in that moment. So it doesn't seem as daunting as we start actually moving through it. It may seem daunting before you actually start
Mm-hmm.
getting into it, and then as you go along you're like, well, actually, you know, like, I feel good after I did that. Like, I thought I was going to be exhausted, but I actually feel invigorated
Mm-hmm.
instead. And you take those little opportunities to kind of sit in a moment of, that's not anywhere near as bad as it was, you know last year or year before last, or it didn't take as long, or I didn't feel like I was stuck in it. Now I feel like it's something that I get to do instead of something that I have to do. That has been a major shift for me over the years. I think the more and more I go through, the more and more I'm like, oh, I get to work with this energy today, instead of, oh, I have to work through this today.
Well, and I think a lot of that comes from having gone through it so many times. The cycle never changes. And so I think we become aware that, you know, and when we first start the journey, we're like, what fresh hell? Every lesson, we're like, what fresh hell? And now we're like, oh, I get it. They're all the same hell. They're all my hell. I created every one of these hells. And now it's just a question of looking at it and realizing that once I look at it, it's like popping the water balloon.
Yeah.
And it can happen that quickly that all that energy is released just by looking at it and acknowledging it and deciding in that moment that you want something different and better for yourself, and that you're going to focus, instead of avoiding that balloon popping, you're going to focus on where you would like to see yourself instead. What would you like instead of that water balloon full of fear and panic?
Yeah.
And then asking yourself, investigating yourself to find out what that thing is and how you might be able to achieve it. And then, gosh, I didn't realize there were so many steps to this process, but then the final step is to embrace the journey towards that thing
Yeah.
and releasing your expectations of what it looks like to get that thing.
Oh, yes. Release the damn expectations.
It's the hardest thing to do.
Totally the hardest thing to do, but really necessary, because that's where the room for growth is. Like when you get the expectation out of the way, then it's like then the whole world is your oyster, really. Like everything opens up, because there's things that like you can possibly imagine, but because you had expectation and you were holding on to that, and like, you know, you kept making the platform tinier and tinier, and then you got freaked out when you realized that there was nowhere to step next.
Well, and the platform was always going to get smaller and smaller because the thing that started this whole journey to begin with is that we were raised to view the world as other people told us it was, instead of to make the world we wanted to live in.
Yeah.
And so there was never going to be any room for expansion in that paradigm. And when we started to wake the fuck up, what we ran into was being much more conscious of all the fears that we're making our decisions from. And that was the journey. That was the hardest part of the journey. Not that the journey's over by any means. The journey never freaking ends. Don't get your
No.
hopes up. This is why you're here,
Yeah.
to do this forever and ever. Amen. It's just like Earth is a learning experience. That's it. But it can get so much more free and empowered and easy and in flow. All of those cliches that spiritual teachers spit out at 55 miles per hour, they're all true. It's just a question of the practical solutions to actually achieving that.
Yeah. And getting comfortable with that new process, because it is. It's very different from how you've grown up, and the systems and things that were put in place, you know, in the beginning, that, you know, it took time to get ingrained into that. And so of course it's going to take time to undo that and trade that in for something else, for something that works better. And there's always going to be little moments of doubt that creep up in your mind where you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I don't know if I'm saying yes to the right things. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And that's normal. But, you know, I think the more times you kind of take the chance and go, well, but let's see. Let's see how this works. Let's see if it works. I mean, really, what do you have to lose?
Right.
You really don't.
No, you
You really
haven't. You
don't.
haven't. Every time you make the choice to be afraid and let fear make your decisions for you, you're not in any danger of gaining anything anyway. At the
Yeah.
most, you're in danger of not losing what you already have. But if not losing what you already had was your goal, it's never your goal. You always want more.
Yeah.
And so not losing what you already had is going to keep you from getting more.
Yeah. So stinking true.
Have we done the thing?
I think we've done the thing.
I think we have too.
I think we've done the thing. Like, there's still a lot more to talk about,
Oh, yeah.
and there's a lot more that we're excited about.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's going to be a lot of conversation coming up, because I know
Oh, yeah.
one thing that we haven't touched on, like, at all tonight, that's going to come up in the very near future, because I know we're both going to bust if we don't talk about it,
What?
is ghosty things.
Oh, God. Well, shadow season is coming earlier this year.
It is. It is. And we are so feeling the ghostiness right now.
Yeah.
I am feeling the Halloween. I'm feeling all the ghosty things. I am watching all the ghosty things. I am listening to the ghosty things. I am flipping through ghosty things on Instagram.
What are you into the ghosty things? That's the
I
question.
am into the ghosty things. It
Well,
is.
they'll have to tune in next time in order
Yes.
to hear all about the ghosty things or the time after that. We can't promise anything. We
Right.
never know what the guides are going to put in our heads and spit out our mouths. And that's the whole point of the show.
Absolutely. Truth.
So, can I wrap us up?
I think we just did, didn't we?
No way, man. I have a new closeout and I'm using it, damn it.
All right. Go. Use your closeout.
All right. So, here at Using Our Inside Voice, our mission is to empower you. So, if you've enjoyed the show, please empower us by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing. It helps us to empower others. And if you would like to stay up to date with our insights, our downloads, and our upcoming shows, check us out on Instagram, which is Using Our Inside Voice, all one word. And until next time, this is Heather and Jamie, and we're using our outside voice to say, stay safe, stay sovereign, and we'll see you next time.
Woohoo! We out.